For the penultimate time this season and at Climate Pledge Arena, I get to say on this show, it's a Seattle Kraken game day.
You are Locked On Kraken, your daily podcast on the Seattle Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, what do you say, Seattle hockey fans? Welcome to another episode of Locked On Kraken, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Erica L. Ayala here, been your host of Locked On Kraken since the very beginning. And I go way back, even before we had the Seattle Kraken as a name, NHL Seattle. I wrote for the NHL Seattle about Willie O'Ree, about the Colored Hockey League, and was one of the writers that brought you content on the day the official Seattle Kraken name was revealed. These days, I'm working with CBS Sports, mostly with women's basketball, but also some hockey as well. So let's get into this game day episode. And if you're watching on YouTube, first, apologies to our YouTube crew. Our audio folks know this. I ran into some hiccups with technology. I think I almost have everything sorted out. So hopefully there won't be any more delays in the show. But if you're watching on YouTube, you see the first bullet for today's episode is Gru. We're going to see it. It's happening. We're going to see Philipp Grubauer in net tonight. And if you have been watching on YouTube, you probably saw I put a short video up while I was traveling the other day saying, listen, I really wish someone would ask Dan Bylsma about Philipp Grubauer and why we haven't seen him, kind of what's going on there. And I also told you that I was thinking that because the team is on the road, because these games, quite honestly, don't really mean much, I didn't expect for there to be a lot of the traveling media, the regular media. And I also told you it's probably a little bit outside of the bandwidth of what team media is likely to cover or answer or ask, and have Dan Bylsma answer. One, because they probably already know, but also, again, it's just, that was my hunch, that was my gut. And I don't know if it was Kate Shefty or if it was Allison from Davy Jones' Locker Room, who also writes for the Associated Press. I'm not exactly sure who asked the question, but I'm certainly glad they did, because finally, Dan Bylsma was pressed not only about Philipp Grubauer, but also who is starting in net tonight. Here is what Dan Bylsma said at morning skate.
Yeah, I really, played probably his best games since he's come back here, especially the first two in particular that he played was, how he can play, how he can be an effective goalie and win games in this league. So it's, frankly, it's earned him, how he's played has earned him more starts as we've gone along here. And yes, he's starting tonight.
Yes, he's starting tonight. You heard it there. And Dan Bylsma was definitely pressed. Wasn't something that he wanted to offer up. He was also asked if the plan was to start Philipp Grubauer in Utah had he not been ill. He said, yes, that was the plan. So we're going to see Philipp Grubauer in net. I thought it was interesting to say that, for Dan Bylsma to say about Philipp Grubauer, that his play since returning from Coachella Valley earned him more starts. And I don't really think that he's gotten enough starts. Has he been unhealthy? We know he was sick, but are there other things that he was dealing with? Because I still think Philipp Grubauer could have gotten more starts, but he's getting one tonight. So that's important. We also heard Dan Bylsma chime in a little bit about Joey Daccord and his workload. And that's been a big topic for us in the comments on YouTube and, of course, on the show. So let's take you back to Dan Bylsma talking about Joey Daccord and the workflow that he's had, the workload that he's had, not just this season, but for the past several seasons, including with Coachella Valley.
Just how much he works off the ice. I mean, he puts in an absorbent amount of work off the ice. give himself the best chance to play the energetic goaltending that he plays, but also to be able to, weather the load and play a lot of hockey for us. And yes, a lot of games in the last 3 months. I think in the last 38 games, he's played the most of any goaltender. But 2 years ago in CV, he wrote him for 26, at the end of the year. And it's maybe not the same number of games that he got to the total that year, but capable of riding him with just how well he is conditioned, how hard he works. There's a lot of confidence in him being able to weather the load. And I think goaltenders want the net all the time. That's what makes them competitive. That's what makes them a great goaltender. And I think throughout the year, you're splitting the goalies, or it's 60-40 or whatever. They probably feel like they don't have the net enough. And times like, I said 2 years ago in CV, he was splitting the net or 60-40 with the net until we came to the end of the year in playoffs, and then he had to have the net, or then he got the net for 26 in a row. So, both being conditioned for that, both mentally and physically, is a big thing. And he got, yes, this last 2.5 months is, evident. It's not a trial run, but it's evidence and confidence for him that he can. Tough to find those. There is in the playoffs. 2 years ago, it wasn't always completely healthy, and so he was, always staying ready to go and always wanting to go. But that's what he was at that point in the time of the year where you fight through it. And he said he we took some practices off with the knowledge that, hey, okay, we're taking a practice off, so because it's playoff hockey, I'm going to be in the net.
So interesting insights there. I believe that was RJ asking about if Dan Bylsma has ever seen moments where Joey Daccord looked a little fatigued, and he opened up and said that when he played in the playoffs a few years ago with Coachella Valley, he wasn't always 100% healthy. He said it's few and far between when Joey Daccord just really can't go. And I think that we all see that, right? We all know that. Whether Joey Daccord can, right? Whether we can ride the hot hand or the reliable hand, that's not the question for me when it comes to his workload and managing that. It's a matter of if that's what we need to do. Dan Bylsma was talking about a playoff run for Coachella Valley. We're not in a playoff run. And so again, I am not team tank. However, I am team play it smart. I am team build a strong foundation. I am team give Joey some rest. You don't have to have him play that many games. And so I said what I said is my conclusion to this portion of today's episode. It was good, though, to hear people asking about goaltending. I mean, because it's a curious matter. And I still don't completely understand. While I can appreciate the workload that Joey can handle, he shouldn't have to handle that. And if we say Philipp Grubauer has been playing better, but then we don't give him starts down this last stretch, I mean, what is that saying as well? The last time we saw Philipp Grubauer in net was March 31st. And his last 5 games in the NHL, January 28th, March 8th, March 14th, March 19th, and then March 31st. Now, granted, there was a little illness that was running rampant around that time, but between March 19th and March 31st, the Seattle Kraken, between March 19th, which was the game against Minnesota, and March 31st, which was the game against Dallas, there were there were 5 games. 5 games. And then there have been before tonight's game, an additional 5 games before the St. Louis game. So, in some stretch in those last 5 games, Philipp Grubauer in April, Philipp Grubauer was sick. But what about the 5 games between Minnesota and Dallas? Was he sick then? So that's what I'm talking about when we take a look at how the Seattle Kraken goaltenders have been utilized. Coming up next, Brandon Montour celebrating a milestone. We'll talk about that. And then I'll give you 3 keys to tonight's game against the St. Louis Blues. Today's episode of Locked On Kraken brought to you by our friends at Game Time. There's nothing like the energy of a live game, whether it's catching a last-minute MLB showdown or soaking in the excitement of an NBA matchup. And of course, we all know how exciting it is to be at Climate Pledge Arena to see the Seattle Kraken. But finding great seats at a great price, that used to be a challenge until I found Game Time. Game Time makes scoring last-minute tickets easier than ever. Prices actually drop as the event gets closer. And with their all-in pricing, you see the total cost up front with no surprises at checkout. Now you can grab last-minute seats to see the M's play. I've done that before. Big deals with the zone deals. You can also have peace of mind that you will be in a good seat with a view from your seat that you can see. And of course, there is the lowest price guarantee. That means I never worry about overpaying. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use promo code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed. And thanks as always for making Locked On Kraken a part of your daily destination. Erica L. Ayala here. And listen, I feel like I got some vindication for what I've been saying about goaltending. I do think that Dan Bylsma thought he was kind of defending Joey Daccord and, supporting what the workload has been. But for me, I don't know. The math ain't mathin'. I'm not overly upset when it comes to controversies. It's not the biggest deal. I just hope that I'm not putting an asterisk on this podcast and the several others where I talked about Joey Daccord's workload in the future. And that's what this is about. Can Joey Daccord play out the rest of the season? Yeah, it seems like he can. And he has for the most part. It's not can he, it's should he. And I don't think that he should. And Philipp Grubauer has been overworked by the Seattle Kraken. Martin Jones has been overworked by the Seattle Kraken. The Seattle Kraken have an issue overworking goaltenders. I've seen that time and time again. And you can say, suck it up, buttercup, welcome to the NHL, all of that crap. You know what's also true is that between composite sticks, how players are training, how the game is moving, it's faster, it's quicker, it's harder. And you have to take that into account as well. So anyway, let's move on because Brandon Montour going to celebrate a milestone. We heard from him also at Morning Skate talking about what it means to be a member of the 600 Club. That's right, Mr. 600. Brandon Montour expected to play his 600th game tonight. Here's what he said to media at Morning Skate.
Yeah, highs and lows. Obviously, it's good experiences, really good experiences, but obviously some tough ones as well. So, yeah, no, knock on wood, been fairly healthy throughout my career and missed a little bit here and there, but all in all, pretty solid so far.
How do you feel about health in that vein lasting this long? Is it more a preparation for your body or just more of just being fortunate throughout the years to stay this healthy?
No, I mean, preparation is obviously, I think, number one. Nutrition, the way you prepare for games, the way you kind of prepare for seasons. Long, obviously you're going to have bumps and bruises, treatment, taking care of yourself, off the ice in the summers, but also throughout the years, just as important.
So we're getting game 600 in a Seattle Kraken uniform. We also saw Brandon Montour hit a career high in goals. He did talk a little bit also about, returning from injury last year, feeling a little bit more of himself, being with a new team. But Brandon Montour also talked a little bit about what it's been like to kind of get the giddy up going when you know that the team isn't going to the playoffs and coming right off of a Stanley Cup championship win. I'm sure that's very difficult. And we heard this from Montour before, but it fits into, again, this team, they're not thinking tank. Maybe some fans are, definitely some talking heads and analysts, but this team, they want to compete, and they're disappointed that they haven't been able to do that the way they wanted this year. Let's just hear a little bit more from Brandon Montour.
This is year 10, year 11, so I've been around, been in different locker rooms every year. I've had older guys, veteran guys to kind of lead the way when I was a younger kid, but again, the personalities, the players change, people change, but the personalities pretty well stay the same. And you find guys, you connect with guys, and I've done that since day one, and guys have been good. Main focus now is to start winning more hockey games.
In the grand scope, 3-2 coming off the road trip, what expectations do you place on yourself and what these guys are placing on themselves here with 2 games left?
Yeah, again, I think their mentality since the deadline, it's one thing that it's tough, especially with a team like us that have been out for a while mentally, and you might take games off or it might not matter or things like that. But for us, we expected more from our group. Obviously, it didn't happen, but again, for our group, it's about growing, and regardless of what happens, you feel good. And I think the last 15 games or so, we've turned a page a little bit. Regardless of wins or losses, we're happy with how things are going, and there's no reason to stop yet. And again, it's nice that we're playing tough teams. Vegas had a chance to win. Obviously, the game prior, that was what it was, but a big game against LA. So you're playing good teams that are in the playoff mix that, again, are trying to play their best hockey. So it's nice for us to kind of help each other and try to find our best hockey as well.
That's exactly it. The Seattle Kraken have had some barometer games, and I think that they have figured out, again, how they measured up. We talked about that. Dan Bylsma had that quote and really leaned into it. 17-17-5 record, 5 overtime and shootout losses. But if we think since the trade deadline, the Seattle Kraken are 8-7-3, and in the 3 game essentials, Jeff Baker says, this squad has what he says. And so Jeff Baker in the 3 game essentials writes, quote, "Yeah, it's all symbolic right now, but if this squad wants something to build off this summer, then why not that? Plus, they can truly give back to those fans with quality performances against 2 playoff teams upcoming." And so, yeah, it is an opportunity to play for the fans, to empty the tank, to show them who you are. And that's important. We heard from the captain, Jordan Eberle. That is the charge. That is the call. Brandon Montour, again, because he said similar things before, but he reiterated that in his media availability. So, hey, if you're going out to the game, don't you want to see a good one? And the Seattle Kraken have an opportunity to do that at home against the St. Louis Blues. So I'm going to give you a few keys to the game as we get ready for, as I mentioned at the top of the show, the penultimate game and the penultimate home game for your Seattle Kraken. Today's episode also brought to you by Amazon Fire TV and Locked On. Did you know your Fire TV is also an Xbox? Turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with Fire TV Stick 4K devices. No console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play included, and you're ready to play. Dive into hundreds of premium titles for EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty, Black Ops 6, and Avowed. As easily as you stream your favorite shows, it's gaming made simple, and it's all on your Fire TV. With Wi-Fi 6/6E and auto low latency mode, advanced technology, Fire TV Stick 4K delivers smoother, more responsive gameplay with lightning fast speeds you need to stay competitive. Play high-quality Xbox games at a fraction of the cost of a console. Already have a console? A Fire TV Stick 4K device is more affordable and easier to travel with, allowing you to take your or your kids' games wherever you plug in. Head to amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Games Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K second generation, Fire TV Stick 4K Max first and second generation, and Fire TV Cube. And I hope you're as excited as I am, Seattle Kraken fans, for some Seattle hockey in the Emerald City. I'm wearing my green hat. It's been a minute. The hat vibe was a little bit really by circumstance. I happened to put a hat on before I recorded something, and then I kind of liked it. It worked. So I'm back to the hat. I'm also back to the jersey. This one I'm a little bit concerned about because it doesn't have a good track record, so to speak, but it's a Kraken game day. And so it's the second to last time that your Seattle Kraken will wear these blue unis at home. So I figured I'd get festive as well. Taking on the St. Louis Blues. I talked about some of this yesterday. Again, that was an audio only because of some technical difficulties I've been dealing with. I think we got that fixed. So I mentioned 17-17 and 5 at home, hoping the Seattle Kraken can get a break even when it comes to the outright wins, losses, or do more than break even when it comes to the outright wins and losses. On the road, the St. Louis Blues are 20-16 and 4. They're 8-2-0. They're 8-2-0 in their last 10 games. The Seattle Kraken 4-5 and 1 in their last games. Okay, keys to the game. Pretty simple. Number one, let Grubauer cook. Philipp Grubauer is 4-5 and 2 with a 2.81 goals against average and 8.97 save percentage. Has one shutout in 11 career appearances against the St. Louis Blues. Joey, his record, just for comparison, 0-3 and 2 on 3.91 goals against average and an 8.52 save percentage. Not numbers that we're like super thrilled with for either goaltender, but the numbers are slightly better for Philipp Grubauer. He has more games against the St. Louis Blues. I just want to let him cook. That shouldn't change. No, it anecdotally does seem to make a difference when Philipp Grubauer is in net and how the Seattle Kraken play. But just let Philipp Grubauer do his thing, and then everyone else has got to show up as well. We've seen this team can really buckle down and block shots. I really want to see them get back to an aggressive forecheck, playing a little bit faster with a little more giddy up, as I sometimes say. I feel like that has been missing in the last handful of games, but knowing that there's a little bit of a flu bug going on, the team was on the road, I'm hoping that home cooking will come in handy when it comes to the Seattle Kraken taking on the St. Louis Blues. Now, point number two, this is a St. Louis Blues team that has been pretty successful in their last several games, had a little bit of a skid, but got back on track. Again, 8-2 and 0 in their last 10 games. So I want to see the Seattle Kraken really come out firing. When the Seattle Kraken are leading after the first period, their record is 11-5 and 2. When they're trailing the Seattle Kraken after this first period, 11-22 and 2. So we like the odds in the other way. Similarly, if you let the St. Louis Blues get a lead early and they're leading after the first frame, they're 23-2 and 2. So an early start is huge. And I can go even beyond that. The Seattle Kraken, when they score first, are 20-10 and 4. The St. Louis Blues, when they score first, are 37 and 3. So yeah, whatever team is leading in the first, whatever team gets the first goal, statistically speaking, from the trends that we see, it makes a difference. And I always am asking the Seattle Kraken to start on time, baby. So hopefully we can do that. Things pretty much even everywhere else. I will say, the numbers for both teams trailing after the second period, not great. Neither fan base is going to love these. Trailing after the second period, the St. Louis Blues are 3-25 and 4. Trailing after the second period, the Seattle Kraken have 2 more wins. They're 5-37, so 12 more losses, 537-3. Your Seattle Kraken have a 6-6 overtime record, while it's 12-7 for the Blues. So I guess also start early, start on time, and get it done in regulation, Seattle. That is for sure. Point the third. When it comes to this Seattle Kraken team, hey, play for pride. It is, again, the penultimate home game, the penultimate game on the docket. I mentioned it already. Empty the tank, but also play with that swelling pride. Where is it? It's over here. Defend the deep. Okay? Defend the deep. That's been a little bit of a punchline as opposed to a proclamation for our Seattle Kraken. But let's go. Play with some pride. The fans are behind you. I wish for sure I could be at one of the last two games. I was supposed to go to the game against the Kings, and then I got roped into some WNBA draft coverage for CBS, which is super exciting as well. But I will be bummed to miss out on what I hope is a celebration at home. The Seattle Kraken, I do think, can take one of these last two games. Now, we'll talk about LA when that game comes up, but again, we heard from Brandon Montour. This is a barometer. So go out and get that game early. Let Philipp Grubauer cook and play with some pride. Empty the tank. Show us who you are, Seattle, because we want to celebrate, and we want to celebrate this team. Yes, it's been a rocky road, but you know what we do. We hold fast and we stay true. Be kind to yourselves, be kind to one another. And I already said the hold fast. I already said the stay true. So the last thing there is to say is peace out, everybody. Enjoy the game.